Good evening and welcome to, on a very rainy and damp evening here in New York, with temperature below 70 degrees, I want to extend a very warm welcome to all our viewers on our Monday night Globespan program. Our special thanks to Nohar Singh for making this platform available, and of course to Devin, our technical specialist, for the transmission. As we speak tonight, the airport is being reopened in Guyana, and I want to encourage all of our viewers, for those who are traveling, please book your ticket through Globespan. In this way, not only will you have someone to talk to, but if things need to change, your ticket need to change, they can do it for you. The price, whether you book it online or you book it through Globespan, is the same, so there is no additional cost in ticket, and Globespan will get a commission for which they can use some of that to help us in this broadcast. So I want to encourage all of you to please use Globespan as we open our airport in Guyana. This month is Agriculture Month in Guyana. The theme this year is investing in agriculture for poverty reduction and a sustainable development. In 2020, in the national budget, Ministry of Agriculture got in excess of $18 billion in funding. There's also another $5 billion that went to Gaisuku. This evening, it is indeed my great honor and privilege to have with us the man who is tasked with the responsibility to eradicate poverty. He is no other than the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Mr. Zulfikar Mustafa. Minister, welcome to the program tonight.
Thank you, and thanks for inviting me on your program.
All right, thank you. Also with me is my co-host, Dr. Euclid Rose, no stranger to us. He's a professor here in New York at CUNY, and he advised many politicians around the world. So Dr. Rose, welcome again to the program.
Thank you, Charles, and it's good to be here, and welcome to all our listeners, and thanks to you, Minister Zulfi, for being on the program as well. It's been a great pleasure having you here.
And this evening, as we start, Dr. Rose, I want to start with you tonight to ask Minister anything you might have on your agenda.
Okay, Minister Zulfi, a lot of people know you from the quarantine, but a lot of people across the country do not know you. Can you give us a background of where you're from, where you grew up, brothers and sisters, and so forth, so that the nation and all Guyanese in the diaspora and around the world have a good background of what you are or where you came from?
Well, as you rightly said, I am famously called Zulfikar Mustafa from the quarantine. Growing up, let me be very frank with you, growing up, I was in the political arena from a very early age. As a matter of fact, Dr. Frank Anthony and myself were the first set of pioneers in the Progressive Youth Organization. You call it the POP, the Progressive Organization of Pioneers. In 1980, we were the first set of young people, children, to form that organization. And then moving from primary school at from Auckland to Quarantine Comprehensive Secondary. And there we had people like Mr. Adin Prasad, Mr. Tilak Dari Bikam, who is now residing overseas, and a number of other teachers who taught me at that school. I was very, very active in the National Students' Council of the Progressive Youth Organization. And from there, at one time, when they had the student strike in the 80s, I was expelled from Compre because of my political activism as a young man. And there, Mr. Navin Chandrapal, who was the first secretary of the Progressive Youth Organization, had to go to Compre to get me reinstated back as a student. And from there and then, I started to develop a political liking for politics. And I moved through smoothly because my father, who was a cane cutter, was very active in the trade union, the Guyana Agriculture and General Workers Union, as a representative. And you know, I was exposed to political ideas, trade union ideas from a young age. After completing secondary school, I did some courses, and I did evening courses at the Gaisuko Training School at Port Morant. Then I was selected by the PPP to go to the former Soviet Union to study political science. I did that for 14 months in Moscow, did political science. And then I came back and I started to work with the Guyana Agriculture and General Workers Union. I joined them as a clerk, and then I moved on through the ranks until I became the Assistant General Secretary of GAU. From that, I was then offered a position. I was still active in the party. I was offered a position as the supervisor for Berbice after Mr. Rohit Prasad would have been the regional, graduated to be the regional chairman of Region 6. I was offered to be the PPP supervisor for Berbice. I accepted that position, and then I became a member of parliament. After that, I became, from 2001 to 2006, I became a member of parliament. Whilst doing that, I started a course at the University of the West Indies, management diploma. Then I went on. After 2006, I became the regional chairman for Region 6, East Berbice Quarantine. I functioned in that position from 2006 to 2011, and then Mr. Ramotar became the president after we would have lost the majority and we became a minority government. I was offered a position at the office of the president, and then I was also elevated to the position of executive secretary of the People's Progressive Party. I functioned in those positions at the office of the president from 2006 to, from 2011 right on to 2015 when we came out of government, and then I still function as the executive secretary of the PPP until now, but I became a member of parliament once again from 2015 to 2020, or no, 2019, December 2019, when parliament would have dissolved by the president then. And then now in my present position, I am still the executive secretary of the People's Progressive Party. I did a number of other courses, financial courses. I did a number of trade union courses. I visited a number of countries around the world, Asia, Europe, Latin America. So I have a wide knowledge, and I have been functioning with farmers and grassroots people across the country for a very long time, especially workers and farmers. So that is a summary of myself.
I can see that you have a strong political background and traveling experience. But what about brothers and sisters?
Oh, well, I have a brother who is residing overseas in the United States. I have two sisters. One is in Canada, and the other is living in Albion. All three of them are married with children, older than I. I am the youngest. My mother is still alive. She is about 78, and my father is alive. He's 86 presently and going strong. And I am still residing at Bloomfield. Although I am in Georgetown, I normally goes up there whenever time permits, and I normally visit them almost on a weekly basis. So I am in regular contact with all my relatives, and especially my mother and father.
Good. Glad to hear that. So we now know something about you. Now, let me turn to one of my first questions, and it's about the sugar estates. You know, the government closed 4 sugar estates.
Right.
Skeldon, Rosal, Enmore, and Wales. And they put forward the fact that the reason they gave is that they had to subsidize Gaisuku, and the subsidy is in the billions of dollars. The PPP, your party, said that's not true. They closed the sugar estates because they want to spite the workers there, because the workers are PPP supporters. So here we have 2 conflicting reasons why the sugar estates were closed. What's your take on it?
First of all, I would say that the government, the previous government, closed the sugar industry not because of economic reasons, but as you rightly said, and I will maintain that, for political reasons. And I am just looking for this here. If the viewers can see this, this is a COI that was commissioned by the former government. And they put, according to the former government, they selected people who are not biased, people with agriculture sense, people who got the know-how, and who should have come out with an unbiased report. And this is the report of the COI, a part of the report, the first volume. You got a number, I believe 2 other volumes. And this here, and when I spoke at the budget debate, I quoted from this recommendation. And this is not the PBP's recommendation. This is the conclusion of the Commission of Inquiry that was set up by the APNU AFC government. And it says here, while the ongoing process, well, I just want to read the last sentence. The COI does not recommend the closure of any estate at this time. This is it. And when you look at Gaisuco is more than sugar. It seems that some politicians or some people are very short-sighted. First of all, Gaisuco, we have to look at the entire scenario of Gaisuco. What is Gaisuco? Gaisuco, or sugar, is a way of life for Guyanese. You can be a professor, you can be a farmer, you can be a doctor, but sugar play an important role, and you have, no matter what profession you are in, you have some relation with sugar. And sugar is responsible. Sugar is responsible for the livelihood of almost the entire country. Because when sugar is not in season, when the factories are not grinding, when the crop is not on, the entire economy is down. So let us look at that from an economic perspective. Sugar, Gaisuco is the single largest employer of people in our country, Guyana. You have, at that time when you had those 4 factories that Dr. Rose mentioned just now, with the present that we have, you had close to about 16,000 persons who were employed directly with Gaisuco. When you multiply that by 4, you'll see how many persons directly depend on Gaisuco for their survival. Then when you look at it, the indirect dependents, people who lives in the village, the shopkeeper, the market vendors, the seamstress, and I can mention all, the taxi driver, everything. Those are the indirect dependents on Gaisuco. So the money transfer from the workers to all these people who get a bite on these things. That is the economics. When you look at the social aspect of Gaisuco, the entire community depends socially on Gaisuco. For example, let us use an area, Rose Hall, Kanji. Let us look at Kanji. There is no other industry or no other business in Kanji to take the slacks that was created by Gaisuco. So the workers that were severed, the workers who were dismissed, had to go and seek employment other places. As a result of that, they had to migrate, internal migration. Some of them went out externally. Some of them went with their tourist visa to work in the United States. But there are many of them who went internal migration from Kanji, from Rose Hall to different parts of the country. You imagine that you have in Berbice alone, you have Rose Hall, Skeldon, on the east coast, Demerara, you have Enmore, and then you have Wales. 4 sugar estates. You don't have the kind of industry, you don't have the kind of investment to take care of these slacks. How would the workers survive? Then I was saying about the social needs. The DNI system in the community Gaisuco was taken care of. The health facility in the community Gaisuco was taken care of. The community aspect, the sporting aspect, the community centers, Gaisuco was taken care of. So you have a whole set of social needs that the community depends on. You have economically the workers depend on Gaisuku for survival, for income. And when these things are, when the sugar estate is closed, the government now will have to go and spend for DNI, have to go and spend for health services, have to take care of the needs of the community in terms of sports and recreational facility. The workers are suffering, they don't have a job. Students are suffering, they can't get to go to school, they can't attend schools because of the expense. The parents can't meet the expense for students to go to school. And these are reality. These are the things that I experienced. I went in Kanji, I went at Kelden and the other places. And you could see the dire poverty that started with the closing of the estate, So my take on it, I will say, Dr. Rose, I will say that because of the government closed the sugar industry just to punish the sugar workers politically. That is my take on it, because right in the United States, I quoted in my budget presentation that in 2 years, the United States Agriculture Department had to subsidize agriculture inputs in the United States by billion, one time 19 billion, another time 34 billion US dollar. Why are they doing it? They're doing it because they want to just throw away money. They're doing it because they know that sector is an important sector for the economy. Right. And when you put money in a sector like that, you don't put money, as Ramjitan said in the budget debate, is you throw money in a black hole. You throw money to invest in people's welfare. And that's the way we have been doing it in this budget, in this emergency budget that we just passed in the National Assembly. You'll see the measures that are in this budget are investment in people's affairs, in the needs of the people, where people life can become better. That's the way I see it.
Okay, a quick question. Well, not a question, is that, well, you have a good CEO now. My good friend says Narayan Singh. And as I said sometime back, he has a DNA to turn that sugar factory around, and he's very competent.
He has been working closely with me for since the time I have appointed him. Up to just now, he was calling me because he wanted us to work on some other ideas. But over the weekend, as you rightly said, I took the Indian High Commissioner to visit across the industry in Berbice, because he wanted to see firsthand. And I have asked the Indian High Commissioner to help us to see if we can get some expertise from India to assist us in the...
Right. Now, as I said, and I will tell the world this, SACE is extremely competent. And if he can't turn Gaisuku around, nobody else will do it.
Well,
that's what I know for a fact.
The attitude, because remember, although Gaisuku were taking a beating, as you rightly said, that we didn't see Gaisuku as a black hole. In my word, we didn't see Gaisuku as a black hole, but we always see Gaisuku as a corporation that can contribute to the development of our country, to eradicate poverty, and at the same time we could have turned around Gaisuku. And I will give you some specific just now. When I said we could have turned around Gaisuku, what I really mean. But I was saying that, remember in 2011 and 2015, the sugar workers were fooled by people like Mr. Ramjatan and Mr. Nagamutu when they went to order line, one order line to the next, telling the workers that they should have the government is robbing them, the government should have given them more increases and things like that. I can remember vividly, although we were giving sugar workers 5%, a small increase at the end of the year. Sugar workers used to get a retroactive payment from January to December, 5%. Plus, they used to get the annual production incentive. Since the coalition went into government in 2015 May, sugar workers did not receive a cent increase. The annual production incentive was put on hold or abolished. They did not receive any. They did not receive holiday, not holiday pay, these, what you call it, it's called it sickness benefit. Sick benefit, that is a 1 week pay they used to receive. So all those benefits were denied by the sugar workers. Now we knew, all of us knew, that sugar start in Guyana, sugar start to go into a crisis with the price cut, the 36% cut from the European Union. And we were trying to develop sugar in Guyana because when all the other Caribbean countries trying to go out of sugar, we were saying we'll try to ensure that sugar survive in Guyana because sugar was too big to fail. We knew that sugar, it has a very important role in the development of our country. That was why we put so much effort to develop the sugar industry. We didn't see sugar as politics. We didn't see the bauxite workers as politics. When we invest in the to ensure that the workers' welfare are looked at. So I want to inform viewers this evening that I am very optimistic. I am very optimistic that we will turn around sugar. The fortune of sugar will turn around. My first aim as Minister of Agriculture is that we have to get these factories back once again and actively producing sugar. The next aim is to ensure that we break even, and then we'll look at profitability. But I think we have all what you can say. We can work together to turn around this industry.
Before I throw it over the program to Charles, I just want to give you this suggestion that I read where in Barbados and in Jamaica, where the sugar industry has become a big tourism boom. People from all over the world come to those countries to look at the sugar factory and see how cane turns into sugar right in the sugar factory in front of their faces. So I guess that can also be publicizing Guyana
Definitely.
at a later stage.
Definitely, I am. That can be that. We can use those things, but we need first of all to get it going. And let me tell you, then before Mr. Sugrim comes into the program, I just want to make two other small points. In 2015, when the coalition got into government, they went to the parliament because in the last crop of 2015, the second crop of 2015, sugar production increased. Skeldon factory, you had I can't give you the exact number of ton of sugar they produced, but they have produced, the Skeldon factory excelled production for that period of time. And then the entire Gaisuko, the production was somewhere about 216,000 tons, the entire Gaisuko. But that was work that we put in. You understand? We put in, and the coalition reaped the benefit when they got into government in 2015. We were in the parliament debating the national budget of 2015, and then they started to boast that they have turned around the industry. They have turned around the industry without doing anything. They just went and you had 216,000 tons, and they said they turned around the industry. So they were trying to take the good work that we did, but we had a plan, and the industry was on the verge of turning around because we were looking at replanting. We are looking to get the canes in the field. First of all, we are looking at to drop the TCTS, where you get less canes to produce more sugar. Those were the things was catching on. But then, after the first crop, you see the sugar start to decline once again because the investment they ought to maintain, they didn't do it. They didn't do it. And if you go now and you look at the three factories that are presently grinding, those are Iflot, Albion, and Blaymont, they are grinding just about 60% capacity because over the years, over the last 5 years, they have not done any capital works in those factories. Although they have took $30 billion loan as a bond to do recapitalization in those factories, they have not. And NISIL has been very reluctant in releasing funds to Gaisuko to do the capital works. I have a pack of letters on my desk now, where letters that Gaisuko wrote to NISIL requesting these funds to do critical works, and NISIL never hardly released the funds. And then out of the $30 billion, only $10.2 billion was released to Gaisuko. So you could see the contradiction between the government, and you could see how the way they were treating sugar. So when you look at the entire performance of the last government in terms of sugar, you could conclude, or one can conclude, that they were trying their best to close sugar. And God forbid, if they would have gone back in government this time, I believe, this is my own view, that that could have been the end of sugar. That should have been the end of sugar.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Charles,
Thank you,
over to you.
Thank you. Minister, listening to your introduction, and you, like me, my father also was a sugar worker, and he was a cane cutter as well. So I can imagine how proud your dad is to know that his son has now become the Minister of Agriculture, of which sugar is a great part. So I'm sure your mom and dad is so proud of you.
Right.
Minister, I know sugar is not the only area you look after, but I don't want to leave sugar as yet because I've had a lot of questions that Dr. Rose asked. But I know you mentioned that the Indian government has offered their service to help renew the economic and social stability of the thousands of retrenched Gaisuka workers. My question to you is, what support are you expecting from the Indian government? 2, if you know the cost of that support, and 3, who will pay for that cost?
First of all, let me make this correction. The Indian government hasn't indicated to us that what kind of support they will give. First of all, we have requested that we need some experts advice from India to help us in the industry. We have since written to the Indian High Commissioner asking him to facilitate us, first of all, to get human resource from India to come to Guyana to help us. We are looking at other aspects of it in terms of, and we will be taking care, let me be frank, Gaisuko will be taking care of those persons coming to Guyana to look and help us to fix these factories and look at the cultivation. We'll be taking care of that. Okay. Also, we are looking at replanting. And when you look at places like Rose Hall, Skeldon, and Enmore, you have to have enough cane tops to go into the field. Now, India yields per acre are very high. We are looking at the possibility, we have not made a decision as yet, but we are looking at the possibility of getting tops coming in from those areas, if it could be suitable for our climate and our condition in Guyana. So those are the options we are looking at presently.
Okay.
But financing, we will ensure that we try to do the financing in our country, at least to get it going again.
Okay. And I think with your base in Gao, you have a really very knowledgeable grasp of the sugar industry. So it's like ABC to you basically. So, you know exactly.
So let me give you all something. When I had the board, when I inaugurated the board, I told the board, say, I was a man came through the ranks, and I could go in the field and tell you how many taps are in that field, and what is the water level in that canal, and what are some of the practical aspects of it. And the chairman, Mr. Davi, he was laughing. He said, Minister, well, they can't fool you now. You can go in the Baghdad yourself. So I know about it a bit, but I'm not. But this is the first time. Let me be very frank with you. This is the first time that we have had a person directly from the Sugar Union, Gao, who is on the board of directors, since Mr. Ramutar would have came out of that board. Before when we had Dr. Jagdeo there, Mr. Ramutar was a member of the Gaisuko board, but at that time he was the general secretary of the PPP. Now we have I believe the vice president of Gao sitting on Gaisuko board, and he is part of the procurement team. So we have direct involvement of the Sugar Union. That is the kind of cooperation we need from all the stakeholders to ensure that we have the turnaround of this industry.
One final question on sugar, Minister, as we move on to the other areas under your portfolio. Have you thinking of also engaging countries like Malaysia and Indonesia? Ray asked a question, and Mr. Arjun was saying that because Gaisuko produce quality molasses for DDL, And DDL is they have all these awards for the greatest rum in the Caribbean and sometimes worldwide. I think the quality of the molasses also help them to produce best quality rum. Do you see any collaboration with Malaysia, Indonesia, and other Brazil, maybe other sugar producing countries helping Gaisuco?
We are looking, and I will tell you that we'll accept help from anywhere. But as I said, now we are engaged in India. We are looking also at Brazil, as you rightly mentioned. Brazil is right out next door to us, our neighbor, and we are looking at some cooperation from Brazil. And I'll be looking further afield. We'll be looking further afield because let me be very frank with you. We need help, and we need to turn around this industry. This industry is an important industry for our country to take care of the needs of the people. And I feel that in a matter of years, we can do this. But we have to have the cooperation of everybody on board. And then, as you rightly said, we'll be engaging international partners as long as they are willing to help us. I am willing, as Minister of Agriculture, to work with Gaisuco to get these people to come in.
As you said, sometime not in the distant future, you're hoping that Gaisuco, and I think honestly, it's Narayan Singh, he will do it to bring Gaisuco to some form of profitability, at least break-even point. Now, is it in your plan, maybe in the short term, the medium term, the long term, I'm not sure, of privatizing Gaisuco? Is that any part of the equation?
Well, I should have said that, because we have already published an expression of interest for a private-public partnership in the industry. We are looking at it as a government. We alone can do it. For a fact that we have had very successful private-public partnership, not only in Guyana, but other parts of the world. And I think that we can, and I have had meetings with the Private Sector Commission. I have had meetings with Jarsham Chamber of Commerce and the quarantine. The Central Quarantine have a very active chamber there too. I have met with all those chambers and business entities, and they are willing to invest in Gaisuco. As a matter of fact, the Central Quarantine Chamber of Commerce, they are saying that, look, they are coming up with a plan to look at Rosal. They wanted some part in Rosal to run Rosal to ensure, and they are guaranteeing us that the workers who we are planning to reemploy and rehire will be rehired. So I think that is the way to go to look, and we have already published an expression of interest, hopefully by the end of this month. And I think I have heard, I have been told that there are a number of persons who have expressed interest to participate in the industry. So I think we will have it go from there.
And what about diversification?
Well, that's an important point. We have to diversify. Gaisuco, we can't run Gaisuco with raw sugar and brown sugar alone. We have to diversify, and that is why we are working. For example, Gaisuco Skeldon. When you look at the cogen facilities there, the cogen facility is capable of producing any one time 30 megawatt of electricity. In Berbice, the peak time you can use just about between 15 to 20 megawatt. So that alone, the cogen could sell 30 megawatt of electricity to the national grid, right? So that we are looking at. We are looking at molasses, and as you rightly said, high-grade molasses, and we are looking at other options, other value-added product. For example, we are looking at refining, building a refining, so that around the world, people are not interested in these raw and brown sugar anymore. They want refined sugar. They want high-grade molasses. We can use the sugar with the bagasse for electricity. You can use a number of other places using bagasse now. We can use the ethanol. At Albion right now, as I'm speaking, we have a part of Albion producing ethanol there. So these value-added and diversification, we are working with it because you can't survive. Gaisuco cannot survive with producing brown sugar alone. We have to diversify.
Minister, I must tell you, with what you've spoken with the last half an hour, you're so knowledgeable in sugar, and I believe that Gaisuco will do very well under your stewardship. But sugar is only part of your portfolio. You also look over rice and livestock and fishing and cash crop farming and permanent crops and so on and so on. So let's move on to rice. The rice industry looks very promising as well. We have seen report from GRDB that they had one of their best year. they like to be selling rice to Brazil, in addition to Panama and to CARICOM countries and so on. We also know that there's so much things within this industry. What are your plans for this industry?
So first of all, let me say, and I'm just looking at the notes here, and this came from your suggestion to me and my WhatsApp, current issues. So let us talk about the current issue.
That's
As Minister
correct.
of Agriculture, when I inherited this sector 2 months ago, I find the rice sector in crisis. And let me be very frank, I should have mentioned this when Dr. Rose started out, but he started with sugar, so I was a little biased in terms of that part of it.
Okay.
But let me be very frank. The agriculture sector in our country was like a rudderless ship in water without a captain, moving in the water without a captain. Everyone in the agriculture sector, and I don't blame the officers who are employed in agriculture. I blame the people who were running agriculture. There were no clear-cut policies. The people within the senior agriculture officers, they were doing things what they felt was right. So if you, Dr. Rose or Mr. Sugrim, say that, look, you're taking rice, you're moving rice from Berbice to Georgetown, and you thought that was right, then you're doing it. But there was no policy to show you that will help production or help profitability. So that was the first thing I had to do when I get into the Ministry of Agriculture. I had to call meetings, and we have to set clear guidelines. And we have developed, I have took out those ideas from our manifesto, and I've given clear-cut guidance and policy what we have to work with. That was the first task I did. Then, when you look at the sector by itself, you find problems after problems. For example, the MMA scheme. Let us look at one scheme, the largest scheme in the country. 96,000 acres depend on that scheme for survival in planting rice and other crops. Now, when you look at the infrastructure in that scheme, totally collapsed. The infrastructure was in dire need of critical work. The first thing I did, the first act I did was two. I should have mentioned this also in sugar. As I'm speaking, I am remembering the first thing I did, I went to cabinet for salaries to pay, for money to pay wages and salaries for sugar workers, $600 million. That was the first money I get from cabinet, because Guy Sugar didn't had fund to pay money. The second thing I did was to go to cabinet for money to do critical work in the MMA scheme and other parts of the country. I had cabinet release to me $96 million to do critical works in the scheme, and another additional $29 million to do dams, to do repair dams. And you all will know, both of you, that when you get crop time, you have to get the dams in good order for farmer to bring out their produce. But the drainage system, the cokers, the boxes, and those inlets, they were totally collapsed in certain areas. So I had to spend money to get it done. Now, and I will send some clips and give you both of you all when I get it. You will see a total rehabilitation of these areas now. People now are getting water. People can drain their rice field. People can get irrigation water and things like that. So that was the system. Now, you mentioned Panama just now. We had 2 contracts exporting paddy and rice to Panama. What happened to that contract? Only one part payment was made to the miller of Guyana. In 2018, the first contract, the Panamanian Authority paid a part payment. And when I took over this ministry, you have the millers of Guyana were owed $1.9 billion by the Panamanian Authority, and they still owe them. $1.9 billion was owed to the farmers and millers of Guyana by Panama. When I found out, I tried to find out what was the issue. I found out that the previous government and the previous minister did not intervene. You know, and both of you all will know this, that when the coalition went into government, they called a rice conference and they told the farmers that rice is private business. You remember that statement, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what they did not intervene. So the Panamanian Authority, that money was there, nobody was able to get anything. So what I did, first of all, I tried to make contact with my counterpart in Panama. We made initial contact, but then I took this matter to the cabinet, and the cabinet decided that our president should intervene. He did intervene, called his counterpart in Panama, and as a result of that, now the Panamanian authority, they have acknowledged their debt to Guyana. They said, they asked for some time before the year is out. Hopefully, they will pay the 1.9 with interest, billion with interest. And they also said they are interested in continuing this contract that started in 2018, although it was suspended after the payments was not they did not meet the payment. So we'll have that contract for this new crop again how they reap it now, and hopefully before the end of the year, the farmers and the millers can be paid the 1.9, because we have a note from Panama through our diplomatic person, the people them in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that they will be paying this sum. So that is the problem. Now the rental, land rental and DNI charges and other fees was so high that many farmers were unable to pay these fees. For example, 1 acre of land moved from $1,000 to $15,000. DNI charges moved from $2,500 to $8,000. So what we did, we reduced it back and reversed it back to 2014 rate. So now every acre of land, a farmer saving $14,000. So a farmer will normally, most of these farmers, an average farmer will plant about 15 acres. We just call it a plot, right? A plot in Blackbush polder. So 15 acres multiplied by $14,000, see how much money annually one farmer will save. Then you reduce the charges from $8,000 to $2,500. So a farmer will save $5,500 for each acre of for DNI charges. Then the VAT on agriculture machinery. Today only I received a letter from a farmer. He said he bought a tractor and he anticipate. He bought the tractor before the election, but he anticipated that the PEP will win the election after March 2nd, and he did. The PEP won the election, but you know what took place over the 5 months? So the tractor came in April, but you didn't have the change of government after the election. So the farmer wrote me now asking me if I could make representation to GRA, seeing that the PEP won the election in March 2nd, if he can get back the $500,000. One tractor, he had to pay $500,000 VAT on it.
Right.
So imagine how much money we are putting back without giving the farmers any aid or anything. We are putting back into the pockets of the farmers, right? So that's an investment by itself. That's an investment by itself. So this will help us. Although as you are saying that we are, yes, record-breaking crop, now we'll see more paddy will be produced. More paddy and more lands will be taken up. There was a number of land that were abandoned, and you're having production because the large farmers were renting these lands. The farmers, them like your father and my father, them were not able to sustain the rent for these lands. Because when you look at pesticide, a spray can, simple thing like a spray can, if you had to go and buy a spray can, you have to pay 14% VAT on it. If you have to go and buy fertilizer, chemical, pesticide, 14% VAT on it. Tractor, 14% VAT. So all those money now will remain in the pockets of the farmers, plus the DNI charges and the land rental.
I know, so, Minister, I think the last government had an albatross around the neck of farmers. I don't think they understand farming. And these farmers really spend their lifetime in the field and sometimes with very little reward. So I'm glad that you have seen that and you know that very well. When we come back, we want to continue a little about rice and then we go to other sector in your ministry.
No problem.
Travelspan is now booking repatriation flights and offering shop and ship. Book your repatriation flights to Guyana with Travelspan. There are 2 flights weekly from JFK and 2 flights from Miami. All flights are non-stop to Guyana. Travelspan will assist you with completing the forms and submitting to Guyana's government for your approval to travel. So book your flights today to Guyana, or if you choose not to travel, then call Travelspan for their Shop and Ship program. Travelspan is now offering Shop and Ship. Purchase a gift for yourself or a loved one. Send it to Travelspan to arrange for all your shipping and clearing. Christmas is coming, so don't wait. Either book your flight or shop and ship with Travelspan. In the US, call 718-845-0437. In Guyana, call 227-1701. And in Berbice, call 337-4287. and in Canada, call 647-557-6200. In US, 718-845-0437. In Guyana, call 227-1701. In Berbice, call 337-4287. And in Canada, call 647-557-6200. Travelspan, serving you for over 26 years. Logistics International, based in Trinidad, with representatives in Guyana, is pleased to announce its shipping services from Trinidad to Guyana. Logistics provides shipping services and has experienced personnel to handle all of your shipping needs from Trinidad to Guyana. Buy in Trinidad and let Logistics handle all of your shipping to Guyana, from small boxes to container sizes. Call Logistics in Trinidad at 1-868-336-8218 to handle all of your shipping needs, and they handle all sizes. Logistics International has been shipping for over 22 years to many Caribbean countries with reliability and dependability. Call 1-868-336-8218 in Trinidad. That's 1-868-336-8218. Or email at liclcargo@gmail.com.
Welcome back to our program, and we want to thank our Honourable Minister for being with us. We had a very fruitful discussion for our session, and we want to thank you, our viewers, for being with us. Before I ask Dr. Rose to come on, Minister, I have seen that the GRDB scientists, they have come up with a variety that is with a possibility of producing somewhere between 50 to 60 bags of paddy. And that variety, according to them, it's a big game changer. It can grow in standing water, which is a first, because we know our rice cannot really, when it's ready for harvest, we need dry land, but this variety can grow in standing water. It also has a stronger stem, which compared to our existing variety, it doesn't fall down very easily. With a higher return expected from our farmers, do we see, if this variety is introduced, that farmers will now produce one crop per year and allow the land to rejuvenate for the next crop? If you can make the same amount of money having two crops in one crop, I think that will also give the land some time also to renew itself in its nutrients. What are your views on this new variety?
First of all, I want to take it from this angle. We are living in Guyana, and we are dealing with Guyanese farmers. So, maximum profit. I mean, maximum. That will be a hard task to convince the farmers to plant one crop. But I am extremely happy and extremely excited that hopefully before the start of the new crop, we can release this variety. It's now a candidate variety to release. I have had the report today only on my desk. I'm going through the report. As a matter of fact, when they had introduced the candidate variety in Region 3, I was there in the field. And I spoke there, and I listened to the scientist, Dr. Mahendra Prasad. And as you rightly said, you rightly indicated just now, that all those features that this rice possesses, this variety possesses, and this will help us, and according to Dr. Prasad, this variety can withstand the pests, the disease, the climatic condition, as you rightly said. It can, if it's right, if it is ready to reap now, then you can keep for about 14 to 15 days extra in water, as you rightly said. It would not fall, and that is the kind of variety that we need in conditions like Guyana. Also, the yields per acre will be increased tremendously. Right now, we get about 40, between 35 to 40 bags. And then if you got 55 to 60 bags, imagine how much rice you will have there, how much paddy. So I am extremely happy and excited for this variety. And I hope that before the commencement of the new crop, I can have permission and we will release this new variety. But the other thing is I learned from Dr. Prasad also that some farmers who didn't went to university and research station and things like that already developed variety and was using it, right? And when he went to the field, he was so surprised because he told me that he already saw the variety in 1 or 2 farmers' field. So, and as all of us would have known by now, that the yield per acre is high, tremendously high. And I think that this here, if you can use this across Guyana, this crop, this new crop coming, then we can have bountiful harvest from the new crop. So I'm extremely happy, and I am hoping as Minister of Agriculture that we can release this variety early.
Okay, and Dr. Rose, 1 second if you don't mind. Minister, as we all know in school, Guyana have the hilly sand and clay belt that stretch a couple of miles inland. And our traditional agriculture has been done along the stretch from Crabwood Creek all the way to Charity. What about expansion of agriculture inland? Is that part of your focus to
definitely
to move inland?
And I am looking at the intermediate savanna to look at agriculture there, because you know for a fact that in this year's budget we are encouraging farmers to start the cultivation of soya and corn. Because when you look at the foreign exchange that we are expending to import these things for feeds, right, then we can produce it right here in Guyana. We are giving incentive, and we'll be providing lands too in the interior area in different parts of the country where we can have farmers go there and they can start and we can assist them. And we are looking, as a matter of fact, I have people now in the Ministry of Agriculture looking at this sector to develop it. And we are looking to give this kind of incentive, right? And farmers already have seen interest in the farming community to take on this task.
Okay, Dr. Rose?
Yes, Minister Zulfi. Currently, sugar and rice account for 25% of Guyana's gross domestic product, GDP. And they said the trend seems to be 40% in the next few years. But that will take a substantial amount of investment. Now, my question to you is not about investment, but it's about the rice of itself. What price per bag of paddy a farmer has to get in order to break even, and above that to make a profit?
Well, as Dr. Rose, as I mentioned just now, the cost of production, as long as the cost of production decrease, and as long as you can keep the cost of production low, then a farmer profitability will increase. As a matter of fact, you will find this crop, the same input that the farmers made to the crop, you will find that they will have an increase, their profitability will increase because of the inputs. The cost of inputs have decreased. The land rental will decrease. The VAT and certain inputs will decrease. And
the DNI will go down.
And the DNI charges will decrease and things like that. So I can give you a figure. If a farmer paddy sell for $3,000 a bag, just for example, and he was making hypothetically $500 a bag. Now with the cost of production decreasing, with these inputs down, the same very bag of paddy selling for $3,000 will give you $1,000 profit. So that's the way, as a government, you have to have the vision and foresight to look at the inputs, to look at the cost of production, not just to give farmers handout, but to develop the sector where a farmer can come in now. If I can go and do farming for the first time, I will inherit the benefits of the government, the kind of measures that the government put in the sector, so that I can get those benefits and my cost of production will be at a minimal cost, so that my profitability will be higher and bigger. So that's the way I think as we have to do. We have to develop the sector, and we have to put measures that are friendly to the productive sector of our country, so that they can inherit the benefit of the government. That's the duty of a government, not to put harsh measure, because if you look right across the world, and this is in all the country where government want to see development take place. In the United States, the father of capitalism. If you look in places where they talk about socialism or communism, measures when they want to develop a country, they help the productive sector and put measures that are friendly to the productive sector. And the productive sector will use those measures to increase their profitability, because the cost of production will come down. That's the aim. And that must be the aim of a government, to get those measures in place.
A quick question before I go on to the next one. Sugar. When do you foresee, what time frame you think sugar can be profitable, or the sugar industry can be profitable, even though it makes bagasse, it makes ethanol? I was told, I did some research, and I saw this Kellen Sugar Factory can produce sugar, ethanol, and bagasse at the same time. Right. So that's a modern factory. So what time frame do you think, with these added resources coming on, you think the sugar industry can be profitable?
With all things being equal, I think within the next 5 years, we can break even. Be very frank, if all things being equal, if the industrial climate is good, if the crop husbandry and the cultivation are good, and if the factory performs to its peak, then I think we can break even. And at the same time, after that, we can start to make a profit. But we have to also top. We also top in those markets that are we never do. For example, Mr. Sugrim talked just now about diversification. We have to look at the product coming out of Gaisuku, not only brown sugar or raw sugar. We have to look at refined sugar. We have to look at high-grade molasses. As you rightly said, bagasse and ethanol production. Those are the diversification we have to go into, and we have to get it there, started, and then move on to start break even. That's the main aim of this thing, and then we can start to talk about profitability.
Okay, another question on sugar. 4 sugar estates were closed by the last government or the previous administration. Now you're opening 3 of them. What are you going to do with Wales?
Well, you see, I allow you to, a good novel at the end of it, you got the suspense, right? So I will give you now Now, Wales was destroyed so much by the previous government. They cannibalized on Wales estate, the factory, sorry. So what we are thinking about, I'm now thinking we have already decided that we'll create something called the Wales Development Authority, where we have a lot of agro-business started there. We'll have a place where we have a business incubating center. So those persons who started out, we'll have them build their business incubating there, and then help them, and when they are on their own to start export, we'll send them off their own. That will create roughly about 3,000 jobs. We'll take in the slacks that was created with the closure of Wales estate. So we are looking at that. There are investment already. We have decided the format, and we are looking aggressively to start that process shortly. The Wales Development Authority.
Okay. Now turning away from sugar, turning to fishing. What are your plans for the fishing industry?
Good.
It's a large industry in Guyana. It's spread from the length and breadth of the country, but I haven't seen a plan from no government about the fishing industry.
Well, I am looking to develop one now, shortly, because my first task, as a matter of fact, when I was sworn in, and I was interviewed the same very day I was sworn in, I said it, and some of the journalists laugh, right? They say that, that thing is hard, what you're talking about. I said my first aim is to ensure that we get the ban lifted and catch fish, so you all guys can eat the gilbaka over there, right? And some of them laugh. So now we are close to reality. We had the Secretary of State came to Guyana, and he has undertook that he will be looking at that aspect of it. We are having discussion, and we are on the verge of getting those things realized. That is a $1.8 billion industry. And that industry is targeting our diaspora over there. You all know that, right? Not only North America, but our diaspora and our people living over there. They are waiting anxiously for that time to come when we'll have that industry once again. So I'm very, very optimistic that shortly we can have that ban lifted and that industry can start again, because our fisher folks across the country have been losing that market. Now, what we are looking at, we are looking at 2 phases. One, we are looking at marine fishing, and the other, we are looking at aquaculture. Now, the agriculture industry, let us look at that first. That have died sudden death under the previous administration. You know for a fact when Minister Saturday was there, he had put a lot of effort and energy in the aquaculture industry. And so much so that we had a lot of aquaculture farms around Guyana that was developing rapidly. As a matter of fact, our aquaculture farm at Manripo is named after Mr. Saturday Usa, you know, and that is a very good aquaculture farm there. Today I have had a meeting with some investor who want to start this. They got a new fish coming from Brazil, tambaqui. You all know the fish tambaqui. They want that industry to start. Some of them, and that is a very delicious fish now in Guyana. There are a number of persons who are, who are interested of wearing that fish. The other thing is the other aquaculture farmer. I am bringing them together. Very shortly, I'll be holding a meeting or a one-day conference with them to come up with ideas how we will develop the aquaculture industry and what support government can give to develop the aquaculture industry. In the marine fishing industry now, we are having a serious problem there. As a matter of fact, when I took over that industry or that part of the industry was in a $40 million deficit, right? We had to pay that money from this budget, $40 million, acquire new boats. We are looking at tracking device. We are looking at giving these. I have visited 2 cooperatives already. I have visited Albion. I have visited Quarantine number 66, and we are looking at measure how we can assist these farmers. So I will be meeting with the entire fishing industry and come up with some ideas how we will develop. But short term, we are looking at right now all those inputs that fishermen and fisher folks were paying VAT on. The VAT have been abolished. Twines, seine, rope, lead, outboard engine, all those things now, they will not have to pay 14% VAT on it. The measures that we are putting in place, you know that there is a serious problem in this country where piracy is concerned. I am working, as I said, we will be acquiring more vessels in the fishing industry, in the fisheries department, where we can patrol the sea with the Coast Guard. We are working to develop a tracking device for these fishermen. We are looking at giving them special grant because we have set aside a small business development fund for both other crops and the fishing industry, so they can tap resources from there. So all those measures I am putting in place, as you rightly said, there are no immediate plans that the previous government had, but I am working out based on the manifesto, based on what we said in our manifesto, how we will develop the fishery industry. We said that we will enhance support for fishermen and the co-op through as I just said, that we'll be putting these measures in place. We have reversed the licensing fees for fishermen from them. They have been paying a lot of money, so we have reverted back to the 2014 rate. We'll be creating promoting markets for local produce commercially. And what I have done now around the Caribbean, our fisher folks and also other crops farmers have been facing a lot of problem in exporting their produce to our Caribbean country, although we have this kind of agreement in CARICOM. I have employed in my ministry now an officer working directly to look at the problems our farmers are faced with in the Caribbean so that we can resolve those issues. So I am working generally in a holistic way to get this thing off the ground. As I said, we are giving a lot of concession to large-scale fishing and fisher folks around the country. As a matter of fact, special prices for fuel also we'll try to get, because some areas fishermen are enjoying it, whilst other areas they are not enjoying it. So we want a level playing field across the fishing industry, so that fishermen can benefit from the measures from government.
Okay, one question before I turn it over to you, Charles. Cattle rearing. Multiple research have shown that cattle rearing in Guyana has dropped or decreased by almost 53% in the last 10 years. What are your plans to resurrect the cattle industry in Guyana?
So first of all, I am looking at zoning, because you know there is an age-old problem with cattle and rice.
Right.
Now, for example, when we were in government prior to 2015, we have given out, and this is an example I am just using. We have given out land to farmers to rear cattle in the Kukwit Savannah and the Quarantine. What they have done when we had the lucrative rice market in Venezuela, they abandoned the cattle pasture and took it and make a rice field. So you had rice planting in the cattle pasture, right? And then you had a big conflict where cattle farmers and rice farmers had to move their cattle away. And that was responsible. That was one of the measures that was responsible for the decline in the cattle industry. But besides that, as you rightly said, that the cattle industry has declined because the measures that we had was not in place in the last 5 years to help cattle farmers to get a lot of concession to develop the cattle industry. I am looking at GLDA, the Guyana Livestock Development Authority, to work with the cattle industry, to work with the association, to have better breeding animal come into the country, to have better insemination services with the cattle farmers, to help them develop their breed so that the cattle industry can play an important role and revive once again. I have had a number of meetings in my outreaches across the country with cattle farmers, and they are willing to work with the GLDA, with the Ministry of Agriculture, but you have to organize them, you have to get them going. You know how cattle farmers sometimes behave. They are morally, they want to, because I don't want to use the word selfish, but they want to be by themselves, develop their own flocks. So I am working with them. I have the doctors at the GLDA working with them so that we can have better breed of animal and we can develop this industry and move it forward.
Okay, Charles, over to you.
Excellent move, Minister. I think Mr. Arjuna is on the screen saying that this land use policy and zoning is long overdue. And yes, that's really, really a good move that because not only in Berbice, but I am from Lagrange and the West Bank, and we do have problem with the guy who rearing his cow and the right, farming, so you always have that problem. If there's zoning, I think that will be great. When we come back, Minister, I want to touch on some other areas. I want to touch on coconut farming and blast freezing, and of course the new crop hemp. I want to hear your views on hemp. When we come back, we'll discuss that. Thanks.
Logistics International, based in Trinidad with representatives in Guyana, is pleased to announce its shipping services from Trinidad to Guyana. Logistics provides shipping services and has experienced personnel to handle all of your shipping needs from Trinidad to Guyana. Buy in Trinidad and let Logistics handle all of your shipping to Guyana, from small boxes to container sizes. Call Logistics in Trinidad at 1-868-336-8218 to handle all of your shipping needs, and they handle all sizes. Logistics International has been shipping for over 22 years to many Caribbean countries with reliability and dependability. Call 1-868-336-8218 in Trinidad. That's 1-868-336-8218, or email at liclcargo@gmail.com. Globespan 24.
Welcome back, and I want to thank Minister for staying with us. Minister, you have been so eloquent for the last hour or so, and you're very knowledgeable in this ministry, and I wonder why in earlier PP administration you were not the minister, because you sound so knowledgeable. I think one thing is missing, Minister, is a marketing plan for the agriculture sector per se, and I know that need to be developed. And I know my friend Salim Nasruddin is a marketing consultant, and he has a lot of plans to market our produce. So maybe we'll ask him to contact you so you can work with them. I mean, he can work with you to get those things done.
No problem, right.
Minister, before I go, I know I want to talk about coconut industry. I want the livestock industry.
Just before, Mr. Sugrum, but just before we move on from the cattle industry and other small remnants, as it stands now in my program, in our program, in the Ministry of Agriculture program, what we will be doing, Dr. Rose talked about the cattle industry. That is one of the aim, to improve and develop the cattle industry, to stop the decline presently and improve it back. As I mentioned, some of the programs that I have in place and will be implemented shortly, where we will be more responsive to the needs of the cattle farmers and all farmers around the country. But I want to mention this, that presently we will be looking to develop our facilities in the country, and at West Berbice, Rising Sun, we'll be making a state-of-the-art abattoir there, and another one in Region 3. So by the middle of next year, we'll have 2 modern abattoirs where people can go to slaughter their animal. You know for a fact that that's a stigma for Guyana. When we talk about export and export beef and export to developed country or places like the Middle East, Dr. Rose talked about the Middle East just now too. So we have to have facilities that people trust. And the Ministry of Agriculture intend to develop these kind of facilities. First of all, we have to look at the hygienic aspect of it. We have to look at the entire areas to ensure that we have state-of-the-art facility where people can trust it. And then I think we can develop our cattle industry, develop the smaller ruminants, and become a good meat export country.
And you're talking, Minister, also mega farms to do that, because think of the demand for beef in the Middle East. A lot of the beef, we're coming from, Minister, they're coming from Brazil, they're coming from Australia, and we are right there. Why are we not part of that thing? So I think holistically, the zoning is an amazing part of your plan, but also we have to go into huge mega farms to ensure we have not only the quality with FDA approved guidelines, but also the quantity and our reliability to supply the market. Minister, I know today the Attorney General met with the Hemp Association of Guyana. We had on this program Dr. Turin Durga, who, as you know, is advocating for the cultivation of this plant. Here in New York, Mr. Varnam Bedesi told me of the different varieties that can yield the best, and which variety will yield the best return. What are your views on hemp, and would you support the changes in the law to facilitate the cultivation of hemp?
First of all, I would say that we have to have a national consultation across the country. Let me be very frank with you. You might have your own opinion, I might have my own opinion, and other persons. But we have to have a national dialogue on this aspect of it. As the AG rightly said today, that he will be looking at consultation across the country for limited use of this. So I will support that call. I will support that idea, because in Guyana, and both of you all know the culture in Guyana. We have to have a national dialogue to come up with a consensus on this matter. Right? So it's not a matter that we can make a decision definitely on that, look, we should legalize certain aspect of this or legalize a small part of hemp or so. My opinion, my personal opinion is we have to have a national dialogue. We have to start the discussion and come up with a solution to it. And I feel that the people will be around the country will have different opinion, but at the end I feel that you might have a opinion that can start the process where you have limited use of it.
Yeah, but as I said, hemp is not marijuana. It's a family of marijuana, but I think it's more medicinal and a whole lot of product that come out of hemp. I know the national dialogue is important, but I'm not getting, what is your view? Will you support that dialogue?
Yeah, I will. As I said, I will support a national dialogue on that. I will support a national dialogue because I want opinion. As I said, I am a man for consensus, and I don't want to say that we imposing anything on the population of our country. We have to have a national dialogue, and I will support it. And then we'll come up with we'll know who are the majority of the people what they in for, and from there we can move forward. And I think that can happen shortly. And as the AG rightly mentioned today at that meeting, that we can start that national dialogue early and come up and see the opinion of the people in the country.
Okay, that's good news. Minister, as you mentioned earlier, without D&I, agriculture is basically nothing. In the last PP administration, your ministry spent billions of dollars on the Hope Canal project. What I find intriguing, Minister, is that the government spent billions of dollars to drain our fresh water into the Atlantic. We know there is a huge demand for fresh water. Sometimes it is even more expensive than oil. Yet we seem to have no strategy on how to capture and retain our fresh water. I have not heard any discussion on strengthening the walls of the Conservancy to retain the fresh water. We know in the dry season, the farmers have no water because the Conservancy is dry. So if we retain the water in the Conservancy, we can control it and release it timely to the farmers as is needed. In addition, we can market our fresh water to some CARICOM countries and to the Middle East. Does your ministry is planning to do anything about our Conservancy to retain as much fresh water as possible there?
That has been an ongoing process, Since I took over, I am ensured that we have a crew there. We have regular machine and the Conservancy ensuring that we don't have any fragile part so that we can have a breakaway there. And the Conservancy has been, I've been looking at it to ensure that, as you rightly said, we maintain a level there and we preserve our fresh water. That is the most important. We have to preserve the integrity of the dams there. And that is why we have been doing ongoing work since I have took over the Ministry of Agriculture. We have designated and special machinery in that part of the country working on the Conservancy. The Hope Canal, I think the Hope Canal was an idea, was a marvelous idea, because you know why I'm saying this? The Hope Canal helped the East Coast, many times since it was started there and it came into existence, of people from the East Coast were not flooding. And that canal take out the excess water. That canal, if that canal was not there, I meant you said last week, I went in the Maikoni area there, the Maikoni Creek, and the farmers, they were telling me that if it wasn't for the Hope Canal, they could have been underwater presently. So the point I am trying to say, that Hope Canal was a blessing in disguise for us. That's extremely helpful for the people on the East Coast.
Yeah, but Minister, what I'm saying is that that is good. I think the Hope Canal is important for that, the irrigation of the excess water. But I think a lot of the excess water comes out from the Conservancy, because the dams, if you hold too much water in the Conservancy, the dam can break. So my question is there any plan to strengthen the dams in the Conservancy, maybe with piles or sheet or metal or something, to keep more water in the Conservancy rather than releasing it when the rainfall?
I see where you're getting at, right? I think so, yes. We have to, that in the long term, we'll have to look at that. I will be very frank with you. I'll be going back again with the technical people at the Conservancy shortly, and we'll be looking at ways how we will strengthen it. As you rightly said, that will be a tremendous project in terms of doing those things, sheet piling it or revetting it across the Conservancy, but that will be necessary sometime, because we have to be very careful with the fragility of that dam there. If that
and that's the point. That's the point. Right. And with our topic tonight,
that will be a long-term. That will be a long-term plan to get it done like that. Be very frank.
With our topic tonight, can Guyana avoid the Dutch curse with agricultural development? And my Dutch friend sent me a text saying, "Why are you blaming the Dutch people for the curse?" But with the advent of oil, will your ministry push to get some of that revenue to do exactly that, to strengthen that Conservancy dam, so at least we can hold as much water as possible there, not only for the farmers but also for export?
So as we are winding down, let me answer your first question. I think we can, as Guyana, as a country, we can avoid the Dutch curse with agriculture development, and as you rightly said, we can use resources from the oil revenue to develop our agriculture sector. Over the last hour and a half that we have been talking almost, you have seen that I have mentioned a number of programs that we have in place to develop the agriculture sector. As I always said across the country, everywhere I go, I said that we can have all the natural resources in the world. We can have all the oil, all the bauxite, all the gold. A time will come when those things will be exhausted. I also told the farmers practically that agriculture is responsible for each and every one to be in this part of the world. And agriculture will always remain the backbone of a country's economy. Those countries that had oil and neglect the agriculture sector, you have seen where they are today. They are now once again trying to develop their agriculture sector. And you know for a fact that we as a government, as a party and as a government, we have had a strong history in developing the agriculture sector. Since Dr. Chedi Jagan was the premier of our country, you know that. And we will continue to develop this sector. The agriculture sector is a sector that will ensure that we have wealth in this country. This sector is very important for food security. And that is why, as a party and as a government and as Minister of Agriculture, I feel that we have to develop this agriculture sector. That is why, if you look at our manifesto and you look at the plans that we have implemented so far, we are going to ensure that we move this sector from a sector that is subsistence or was subsistence to a sector that will go into scientific farming. You mentioned, we just talked about the new variety of rice. That is not only the new variety of rice. What we have done in Nari this time around, we have put aside funds to build 30 new shade houses in this year's budget, in this last 2 months. Now, we will be creating a revolving fund because we are purchasing these shade house material. We'll be selling it at a cost price to farmers. We'll use the money to create a revolving fund so that we can always have these materials for farmers. With climate change, with the unpredictability of climate, you can't only depend on open-air farming. We have to move from the subsistence, from the primitive way of doing things to more scientific way of doing it. That is why we as a government are facilitating the farmers to ensure that they prepare themselves for the future. That is why we will avoid the Dutch course.
That is called modernization. And that's a nice segue, Charles, if I can get a minute to ask you a question.
Yes, go on.
Development experts say a country can move from being underdeveloped to become developed and become post-developed. But you must have manufacturing.
Yeah.
I've seen where Guyana has been producing a surplus of fruits and vegetables because you go to all the markets, you see people selling things. The local consumption can only absorb so much. Now, what plans are in place to manufacture, to can or bottle these fruits and vegetables and sell it overseas? Like what's happening in Jamaica and certain places in Trinidad as well. There are canned fruits. I go to the supermarkets up here, I'm seeing, you know what I've seen in the supermarket? Canned coconut water all the way from Singapore.
Yes, and Thailand.
Right, canned okra all the way from Indonesia.
Yeah.
So why can't Guyana do these things?
So I am now in discussion with the Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association. As a matter of fact, they had a webinar the other day, and I did an address there, and I outlined certain measures that we have put in place. Now, Dr. Rose talked about manufacturing. We have to have cheap and reliable power for the manufacturing sector. If we were in government up to now, we didn't came out of government in 2015, we could have had hydropower today, cheap electricity, where that will help the manufacturing sector. For example, I have Mr. Komal Samaru have written to me. He wanted a meeting with me to discuss production, for example, like what you talk about just now, passion fruits, cherry, guava. They're making these tapco juice. And he's telling me that our farmers only supplying him with about 40 to 50%. The rest he has to import it into the country. So he wants us to discuss ways and means how we can improve production in these areas. I am also looking at ways how we will revamp the policy of the new Guyana Marketing Corporation. You know, the Guyana Marketing Corporation just is there, and the usual process they play, the formality. I have to move that and change the whole concept of the new GMC. The new GMC must be there to facilitate farmers and find new markets for farmers. So things like agro-processing, I am looking at that to develop that sector, and work with the private sector, work with the manufacturing association, so that we can have this new whole sector on board in Guyana. So all those plans are in place so that we can move the agriculture sector forward, and we can develop and create more wealth from this sector. So I am rest assured that in the long term, you'll see those things on stream.
A quick question, Charles, then you can take it over. Now, I was told that there's still many squatters in Gaisuku land up in Success. If they're there, what are your plans to move them away from there?
I think most of them are already moved. The Gaisuku have started a process, you know, the flood following. The number of research variety were lost, so they're trying to recoup that. They have started a process of flood following there, and the Ministry of Housing have started the process of engaging the squatters to find lands for them. So hopefully that matter will resolve shortly.
Okay, Charles, over to
Minister, I know you have spent so much time with us, and we want to thank you so much. I said you were so eloquent in your response. You are very knowledgeable in the subject of agriculture. We want to touch on other areas like livestock and coconut and you know, so many other things within the sector, but the time is running out and we have to wrap it up today. So again, I want to thank you so much. Dr. Rose, anything in closing?
No, I just want to ask the Minister, there are a number of questions I still must ask. So we'll have to invite you a second time.
No problem. I'm willing. As long as I have the time, I will come on the program once again, because as Mr. Sugrim rightly said, that we have a number of other sectors to talk about. We have coconut. I have a lot of plans for the coconut industry. Only last week, I was in Linden, on the Linden Highway, at a coconut farm, and then we're looking at intercropping with coconut, so that not only waiting on coconut production, but between the coconut production, from the time you plant to the time of production, you have other crops. You have things like bell peppers, you have pineapple, you have cassava. Those are the intercropping we're talking about. We're looking at new nurseries across the country in coconut farming. We're looking to develop the coconut estate at Hope. So those are the plans. Coconut will be the third most important crop to bring in foreign revenue and foreign exchange into our country. You know, you're speaking here, I want to close with this, that we have been invited by the international coconut community to be a member of that community in Malaysia. So I'm now considering it. I will take it to cabinet for approval, and as long we get approval, then we'll have a representative at the international coconut community so that we can have more representation and benefit from that organization.
You know, coconut oil now is selling on the world market. A lot of people are using coconut oil more than any other oil. What you'll have to come back for us to talk about this, because there's no time tonight.
Sure.
Yeah, and I know, in addition to that also, Minister, here in New York, all this coconut water that is bottled coming from Central America somewhere. So why is Guyana not using, we have some of the best coconut in the world, but we are not this. So Minister, there's a lot on your plate, and I know you have a broad shoulder. I know you will get, and I think based on what you did for the last hour and a half with us, Minister, I really, in my humble opinion, I think Guyana has a great Minister of Agriculture now, who knows the industry and who want to see it move forward. And with the president, who is all over the country, this young man is all over the place, he will get things done. And I'm sure he's pushing his ministers to ensure that they respond to the needs of the people. And in my humble opinion, I think Guyana is in safe hands with Dr. Irfan Ali as president, and with you here now as Minister of Agriculture. So Minister, I want to thank you again for being in the program. It was a great honor. And again, I look forward sometime in the future when you get some time again, not necessarily Agriculture Month, don't wait a year, But sometime in the near future, you can come back on the program so we can have some more discussion on this important area of agriculture.
As we always say as political scientists, Minister, just now, a minister don't have to be a specialist. All he needs is to have good advisors around him and be on top of the issues as you are, and you'll make a fine minister.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be in your program, and rest assured I will be here once again, and we'll discuss more issues and more plans for the agriculture sector. And I want to assure your listeners, assure your viewers that agriculture is here to stay in Guyana, and we'll develop it so that you can create food security and create wealth for the Guyanese nation.
Thank you, Minister. We want to thank our viewers. And again, I want to encourage all of you, for those who's traveling to Guyana, as we know the airport is now open, please book your ticket through Travelspan so they can get a commission ticket. They can help pay for the cost of this program. So, Minister, special thank you again for coming. Dr. Rose, thank you for coming. To our viewers out there, to Nuhar Singh and to Devin, thank you all so much, and God bless you, and God bless our country of Guyana.
Thanks.